Hey there, welcome back friends. In this video we will talk about REST responses, the responses which we get from the REST server. Alright, now let us firstly understand the relationship between a client and a server. The communication channel, the basis of communication is for information. There is a transportation of information between the client and the server. Now information can be represented using different forms, right? So we can represent information using different form. Now this term REST was derived by this particular phrase, representational state transfer, and this term representational state transfer was introduced by Roy Fielding in year 2000. This term representational state transfer applies that the information can be transferred between client and server, and the representation could be anything. Now friends, REST specifications are closely related to HTTP. The reason being, Roy Fielding is among the principal authors of the HTTP specifications, and REST is based on the design of HTTP 1.0. Now definitely when we develop a RESTful API, we must use HTTP features as well, and I will show you how HTTP and RESTful APIs works hand in hand. Alright, now moving forward, let us talk about representations. For example, we have this information where the name is John, age is 33 and gender is male. Now the same information can be represented using JSON or using XML. What is JSON? JSON is JavaScript object notation, right? And in here we can definitely represent the data using the JSON object. Likewise, we can also represent the data using XML. The most important part, the most important thing about this particular slide is that both the representations are showing up the same information. So this is very important, that we can represent same information using different form, and this is very important. Now as soon as the representations are known to client and the server, both the parties, client and the server, are good to go. Alright, now moving forward, usually JSON is preferred. Why? Because client is a web browser and web browsers can easily parse JSON object, whereas when it comes to XML, parsing things can be little tricky. Alright, now there could be a scenario where the server is not supporting JSON, or the server doesn't support XML, or the server doesn't support some other representation, and the client wants some other representation. So there is something known as negotiation between client and server, and we will check about negotiation later down the line. But definitely based on the representation by the server, client needs to respond. Now this is very important. Now understand this. Client has requested for some data, and before client parse the response from the server, client must have information related to the type of the data client is receiving from the server. Let me repeat it once again. In order to parse the data, client need to have the information related to the data which server is giving away. The server is responding, right? So if the server is giving JSON response, then client must know somehow that the response is JSON, and based on the response, client will accordingly parse the data, which is cool. In order to understand what kind of data server has given away, server has responded with, we must read something known as header. So when we receive a response, there is also a header along with the actual data. And this header is what? This is nothing but HTTP header. And inside this header, we have the information related to what? Information related to many things along with the content type. This header can have like multiple values. There is a predefined set of values, and there are like predefined set of attributes as well. So definitely content type is an attribute, and there are like a specific set of values for content type. And if you would like to know more about headers, you can simply Google and check more about content type. Alright, so there could be like numerous content inside the header, and header is what? Header is nothing but metadata related to the data which is inside the packet. So we are simply providing metadata related to the actual data. One of the metadata, one of the attribute is content type, and reading this content type we will understand how to parse the data. In our case, for example, the data is JSON, so our web browser can easily parse it. Alright, now moving forward, there is yet another thing, status code, and we have already seen a couple of things related to status code again, but status code is again a response from the server. Whenever we receive a response along with the header, along with the data, we also get a status code. And there is more to it, and I will discuss about status code in our next video. But understand this, that based on status code, client will understand whether the operation was successful, failure, or there was some inconsistency in our operation. So for example, the status code is 201. This means that this is a good news. Client was able to create some kind of information, some kind of entity on the server. So we will talk about status code in our next video, and we will discuss briefly on status code. Alright, so this is it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day and take care.